Okay, hello everyone watching this recording, and hello Satish. Welcome to this week 3 live session that we have for our LM605 week 3 international business. This week we're going to be going over chapters 5 and 6, and in order to do that, let me share the screen.
Thank you, Professor. I'll go mute.
And let's see here. Oh, you know what? I need to, before I need to unshare the screen, and I need to toggle a couple of switches because I'm going to also show a short video.
Sure.
So let's see here. I'll try it again. There we go. I wouldn't be able to share the sound if I had not done that. Okay, and now I'll share the video panel. There, now you can see me as well. Is that correct, Satish?
Yes, I can, Professor.
All right, very good. Well, let's get started. This is our week 3, and we're going to be studying chapters 5 and 6, which is macroeconomics and the money system. And we're going to go at this sort of as a marketing standpoint in a way to help you with understanding your projects for the term. And this deck that I'm going to share with you is to be augmented or added to the current deck by our authors. So there's a lot of good information here. Some of it is presented the same information in a different way. So that could enhance your learning experience, we hope. The first slide here talks about the different ways to measure how a country is performing. And right away is the first one that we basically all know is gross domestic product and gross national product. Well, what's the difference? Well, the gross domestic product is the value of finished goods and services produced within a country's borders, not adjusted for inflation. So nominal unless otherwise specified. The G&P actually is a little different. It's a little broader than that, and it's where GDP plus net receipts minus net payment outflows, and that gives a better picture of a country's gross national product. And Ireland here is sort of an anomaly. It attracts foreign companies via low taxes, and domestic production outpaces national competition production. And conversely, it's the exact opposite in countries like Japan and Germany. Apple, for instance, has enjoyed a very good tax relationship with Ireland by basing its operations there. However, they've been taken to the European Union, has sued Ireland, claiming that what they're doing is not legal and that they need to stop. So that's an ongoing case that has not yet been resolved. The prosperity diagnostics is measuring actual well-being of a country. Can be divided into the Human Development Index, the Shadow Economy, and the Gini Coefficient Index. And first of all, this is kind of interesting, the Human Development Index. It talks about high GDP does not guarantee a high Human Development Index. Well, why is it? Well, if you're a developing company with a high GDP, but your life expectancy, for instance, is much lower than the OECD average, then your Human Development Index is going to suffer, and that's going to make a difference on the kinds of target markets and prospective customers that you can find. Next is the shadow economy. This is really a real driver of what happens in an economy. Unmeasured underground activity. This takes place in a number of countries that don't have a well-defined labor structure. The United States has a very low shadow economy, and somebody like Bulgaria has one of the highest in the world. And there's a good chart showing this in the author's PowerPoint. And basically what it says is if you have a lot of informal labor working in the workforce, that can mask how much a company is actually performing. There are countries around the world and that have high remittances, where that represents a significant portion of their economy are people working abroad sending remittances home. The Philippines, Cuba, Nigeria, a number of African countries all have high remittances rates, and this adds markedly to the economy. On the other hand, the United States does not. And so you have a clear picture of what their economy is doing, so without having to worry about factoring in a shadow economy. And the Gini index measures wealth inequality, and high Gini coefficients shifts sales strategies from mass market volume to high margin luxury volume. Countries in Africa would have, a number of them would have high Gini coefficients where there's a tremendous wealth gap. And that can cause challenges in the types of products that you would want to offer in those areas. So let's look at the GDP equation, because it's has a few identifying market drivers to it. The GDP equals, and this is important, and I'm like these slides this way because as you write your assignments and so forth, these are good references that you can look to. First of all, here's a Dr. Crispin hint. Anytime you see a separate box or a separate bullet in a slide or in a picture, what that means is that what that is labeled in that box is measurable. So as we look here at GDP, we see that private consumption, business investment, government spending, and net exports are all in boxes. And what does that mean? It means that each item of these are measurable, which means in your research, you can find out specific amounts for each of these boxes, and you can create a narrative that's informed around the accumulation of these boxes used independently or used together or grouped in different ways. So this is very valuable understanding to know that finding measurable components in these equations. So down below is the U.S. output allocation, and look how different it is from the China output allocation. China has practically or a significant level of private consumption less than the United States, and conversely, their business investment is significantly more. And this is enabled China to have lower manufacturing costs, selling its goods throughout the world at lower prices, meaning in the future, we're going to see things like electric cars, solar panels, and other things that are going to have an opportunity to take over markets throughout the world. Now, right now we have nations such as the European Union and the United States that have placed high tariffs on these cars, increasing their cost to consumers, their prices by 100% in the case of the United States. And Canada has, in contrast, broken ranks with the United States, and they do not have tariffs as high, simply because they don't have the kind of car manufacturing exposure that the United States has. And also, our president has managed to annoy Canada, so this is one way that they're able to profit from that. So this is something to watch again as we see nations emerging. What benefits are they taking advantage of, and what are other nations who are exposed taking advantage of what current strengths they have? For instance, the European car market, like Mercedes-Benz, has suffered, and BMW have luxury cars, have suffered tremendously from electric imports because they don't have a viable electric model to counter these new electric cars. And now, coupled with high fuel costs, that's even further setting them back in terms of their ability to compete effectively. So lots of things to consider just by looking at what's happening with this equation. Now here's the policy, and this is where government gets involved. And the purpose of government getting involved at all is to make sure that the economy and the money systems don't flow or swing in one direction or the other too far. When that happens, as in the United States in the 1870s up until the Great Depression, these swings or panics, as they were called, would really cause the whole economy to suffer. People working at factories would have their salaries cut, their hours increased because of these financial readjustments, and boom and bust, and it became very painful. And so central banks, since the Great Depression, have been working assiduously to make sure that these swings are not damaging too great. There have been recessions, there have been downturns, as we've seen over the last 30 years. And the most significant one and the most recent one has been the one of 2008, 2009, and created a tremendous uncertainty on the economy of the United States and the world. So government's role is to make sure that they control money policy through taxes and government spending to make sure that they do not get out of kilter and cause panics or recessions. So the spectrum of volatility, money is supposed to be a store of value, but as the example shows here in World War II, post-World War II Hungary, I can't believe this, but there it is, 12.95 quadrillion percent inflation. Germany experienced hyperinflation before World War II. Most of Europe and the world experienced some level of inflation and hyperinflation after the war. And it was through things like the Marshall Plan and other monetary devices to get these countries who had good natural resources, a willing workforce, back on their feet and get capital working on their behalf again, and rebuilding the plants and factories that were bombed out and getting people to consume again. The governments, they have ways to do this through the float, managed float, peg, and dollarization. Those are the choices that they have. They can use trade-off, freedom from political risk versus incredible volatility and systemic crash risk, such as Bitcoin. As you read, Bitcoin is wildly volatile, and many have looked at it as nothing more than gambling. So we're still developing policy on that to see where it goes. There are some ideal benefits or to Bitcoin and other blockchain currencies. They just haven't all been realized, and this effective policy has been made to realize them yet. Exchange does have friction, and there is a spread between the currencies of how much one is asked versus how much one bids, and that spread is the profit. And that spread can swing back and forth, as shown in the vehicle network model, and it's up to traders, money traders, and banks to keep an eye on that to make sure that the swing doesn't get out of equilibrium and causing financial disruption to the money system. If you want to go into and expand and foreign direct investment into another country, it's helpful to know what the purchasing power parity is in that country, so that you can sort of compare it with the country that you're in. And there are a couple of ways to do that, and one is through the localized basket and that's the Subway test or the Big Mac index, and the other is the globalization good or the iPhone test. And either one is legitimate. They just measure, they go about measuring a different way, but they come pretty close. This means that trying to find, like in the Big Mac, taking a Big Mac is sold the same way all over the world. It's made the same, the materials in it are the same, but it doesn't cost the same. The price is not the same. So why is that? Well, the reason is the sourcing of the materials and the purchasing parity of the local populations all around the world vary. And so how much? Well, using the Big Mac index as a global standard, you can get a clear picture as to how currencies differentiate from the United States, which would be zero, and the rest would have some kind of a number to them. In the case of in India, Satish, in India, if you wanted to buy a Subway sandwich, it says here that it only costs $2.75 in U.S. currency. However, if you've tried to buy a foot long, the big thing was a $5 foot long. So right away, the cost is almost double what it costs in India. That helps companies when they want to buy buildings or capital assets to understand what the real price is going to be, as well as pricing their products and the raw costs to create their products, so they'll understand if they're making a profit or not. There's a currency valuation strategy mix. There's the undervalued, overvalued, and in every conversation about undervalued currency, the Chinese yuan always comes up. And this is because they deliberately keep the yuan low, and presidents have said they subsidize it unfairly, so that they can sell their goods they manufacture to the rest of the world. They have a tremendous manufacturing capacity, and they need to keep that working at all costs, because it takes advantage of their huge labor force. Well, the challenge with the huge labor force is great, but over the last 20 years, those workers have become more qualified and better at what they do, and they have had labor costs have increased because of this, and therefore manufacturing costs have increased, and therefore the price of their goods that they manufacture has gone up, and they don't want to price themselves out of their worldwide market. Japan did this right after World War II. If you had the big joke then was some cheap inferior goods at low prices usually had "made in Japan" on them. Now those same types of goods have "made in China," or "made in Bangladesh," or "made in Mexico." So China now has competition as to their low labor, but they have a huge manufacturing capability. In fact, Satish, if India had China's manufacturing capability, there would be no stopping it as a
Huh?
again, world leader. Yes, you have a question?
No, no.
Oh, okay. I
I,
just heard your
I
voice.
did ask him a question, Professor.
Okay, very good. So these are examples of undervalued and overvalued advantage. This is taking the Great British Pound, or GBP, to the U.S. exchange, and you can see how it has fluctuated. But by using forward rates based on economic growth, the FDI, and political stability indicators, global companies bypass currency market uncertainty and lock in operational margins. So this kind of helps them understand not just today, but what to expect tomorrow. The global sales canvas structuring on the ground execution. This is important because now whatever we've learned theoretically, we have to implement. We have to take our mission, and we have to incorporate it into our operational plans to reach our customers and provide them with with products at the just right moment when they are needing them, and we need to be there for them. So first of all, what is our mission and vision? That's very important because as a senior executive or one of the groups of senior executives, it is impossible to be next to the functional worker who is actually in face-to-face contact with the customer or with the manufacturing portion of the product. There are just too many. So how do you guide that person? Well, you guide that person overall strategically with a mission to say, this is the kind of company who we are. And this is our vision of what we see ourselves doing in the marketplace. So that's very important, and companies spend a lot of time in creating their mission and vision statements for their employees so that their employees can feel a part of these values, and they can operate on their own with these values in mind without having to ask for permission or orders or guidance all the time. And when they do step out of line, they can be reminded that all of our policies are designed to fit within this mission, so and vision. So this is very important. And then from that, a team structure is created, and this is where all the leadership org charts and reporting mechanisms and so forth in the company are shown. And this is the team the CEO has put together that will find and service all customers and compete against the competition. And in doing so, they will discover the target market for the product, that group of select people, select customers who can profitably create a target market. And then finally, once purchased, they can have a customer experience journey that can be understood by the company so that they can keep reinforcing that with their brand extensions and additional products created as a result of this initial effort. So a lot of things are happening in this slide, and this is a good one to keep at hand to remind you that the mission and vision are important. And here's something that is really helpful, and it's not done often enough in organizations, and that is understanding the competition. People say in the organization, well, that's up to the marketing department. They're the ones dealing with the competition. Well, no, competition is everybody's business, because if you're forward facing to your customers, you have an opportunity to speak with your customers about how the competitors are trying to steal them away and trying to offer them products like yours, but with better features that fit more with what they need. Well, what are those features, Mr. Customer? Well, here's what they are. I wish you'd had this, this, and this. And the folks will take advantage of understanding that, cataloging that, and putting that back into their analysis of, well, is there really a market for this? And a good example of companies that take advantage, have taken advantage of this and have grown very profitable, is a company like 3M. They ask their customers constantly, what would you, if you had a wish, what would you do to make to improve this product? What problems can we help you solve? Your challenges are our challenges. One challenge that they had was they didn't like the idea of customers didn't like the idea of having to write down notes on scraps of paper and scotch taping them everywhere because they didn't need things to be that permanent. And so that's how the Post-it notes was developed, and has since become a multi-million-dollar a year product for the company just out of that one notion. So this is how, by understanding what the competition is doing, and they're trying to take your customers, also helps you not only in building your products, but also overcoming no answers from your target market by reinforcing your strengths to counteract your competitor's strengths. So again, a very important part of the sales and marketing process. Now, CRM, the CRM is basically customer relationship management, and it's also a large part of customer satisfaction. And customer satisfaction is one of the very few things that, when measured, can actually be attributed to the bottom line of a company. Research has shown us that And it's again one of the few things that lead directly to improvement or disprovement, unimprovement to the bottom line. And so, first of all, sales enablement talks about the documentation and all the cultural negotiation and practice, all the intel that they get and they put into the customer relation management core. And then the sales support feedback loop is after the product has been purchased, enjoyed, and is being used. They try to understand, is the product being used in the way we had imagined it would be, and how is the customer experience as we had imagined it would be? If it is not, what do we need to do to improve that? There was a company in that had made car washers that was basically a long stick and had a whirling brush on the end of it. You hook it up to your garden hose, and it has a little container for soap, and the water would go through the soap, and it would scrub and rotate and wash your car. Those were very big selling in the United States because, you know, why? We have a lot of cars. Well, we decided that go to other car cultures and sell that device internationally, and Japan was one of the nations that the company went to, and they started selling a lot of these car wash brushes to people in Japan. In fact, so many that they saw that they were selling them more at a higher ratio than what they had cars for, and they couldn't figure out why they were buying so many. Well, the Japanese are very big on cleanliness, particularly for their bathrooms. And on most of their bathrooms, in fact, most of their bathrooms are tile instead of wood and carpet like they are in our country. And so they found that this device was very effective in using those whirling brushes and water and soap to wash down all of their bathroom areas. And so they snapped those up and used them very effectively in a way that the company had never realized. But because of the sales feedback loop, and they went out to see what was happening, they learned that this additional use was happening, and customers were very happy about it. So, and they made other subtle changes, innovative changes to that machine to make it even more desirable for bathroom and other types of interior washing. So that's the value of having customer feedback. And that's something that, again, everybody needs to be involved who is forward facing to the customer. And then the go-to-market engine, awareness and outreach, first and foremost, is the marketing strategy. And the marketing strategy is, again, it promotes the brand, the communication with the customer that needs to be replicated across all technological platforms and with all interaction with the company through any customer-facing employee, ordering, help, and so forth. And that's taking place over here on the left side. And then prospecting strategy means that marketing, creating brand awareness and product awareness out in the marketplace. Who else could be a prospective customer, could be a prospective target market, and who should we be focusing on? In the case of the Japanese tile washing brush machines, that opened up a brand new market that was profitable. And so using that intel helped very much in the creation of a new market. So that's where that sort of, again, is very important. And then finally, the command center. This is basically setting the goals and in most cases, the stretch goals. And that is, you can see here that not one of these goals here have been met or exceeded. And many CEOs say that if you reach or surpass the goal that you have set, it means you set it too low. A stretch goal is out there for salespeople and marketing people to strive, and for the company to strive to strain and reach, do the best they can. And if they don't reach or exceed the goal but if they come close, that is the perfect goal. So as a leader and so forth, you may want to keep that and consider that. Now, having said all that, I want to share with you something here that I think you'll find interesting.
Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to do something pretty exciting. We are seamlessly bridging that massive gap between high-level international economics and your actual boots-on-the-ground sales execution. So, if you've ever found yourself wondering how global GDP, exchange rates, or inflation actually connect to your daily business targets, you are in the exact right place. We're going to break down exactly how macroeconomic realities dictate micro-level sales strategies.
All right, here's our roadmap for today. We'll quickly evaluate global economic systems, navigate foreign exchange risks, structure a sales team, define our target market, and finally, build out a concrete prospecting action plan. Let's jump right in. Kicking things off with Section 1, Evaluating Global Economic Systems.
So, right out of the gate, understanding the macro environment you're stepping into is absolutely crucial. Take a market-based economy, also known as capitalism. This is where factors of trade and production are controlled by private owners, not the government. Honestly, when international businesses look to expand, this fundamental economic setup is the very first thing they analyze, because it completely dictates how capital, labor, and innovation can actually be used to generate real wealth.
Now, it is incredibly easy to confuse these two metrics, but the distinction is massive. GDP looks strictly at domestic borders, but GNP, that includes what a country's national companies produce internationally. To put that into perspective, look at a country like Ireland. As our research notes, they attract a ton of foreign companies with low taxes, which means a lot of their domestic production isn't even from local national companies. But then you flip it and look at countries like Japan or Germany. They have tons of national companies producing outside their borders, pushing their GNP way up. Getting this right prevents you from totally misjudging a potential market's true economic identity.
And GDP isn't just some monolithic number. If you unpack it into these 4 specific slices, private consumption, business investment, government spending, and net exports, it gives international companies a much better read on actual market opportunity. Think about it. If a country's GDP is heavily reliant on government spending rather than private consumption, well, your business-to-consumer sales strategy there is going to look vastly different than it would in a heavily consumer-driven market like the US. It's a completely different ballgame.
Moving right along to Section 2, Navigating Foreign Exchange Risks.
So, to account for wildly different living costs across countries, international businesses rely heavily on something called purchasing power parity, or PPP. It basically standardizes the cost of living, because nominal GDP just doesn't tell the whole story. For instance, if you're traveling on a tight budget, you can grab a Subway sandwich, chips, and a drink in India for roughly $2.75. That is literally half of what you'd pay in the United States. So PPP adjusts for these everyday differences so companies can actually make accurate apples-to-apples comparisons of market wealth.
But man, foreign exchange carries some massive economic exposure. 12.95 quadrillion %. Take a second to wrap your head around that. That is a practically incomprehensible hyperinflation rate that Hungary experienced right after World War II. It completely decimated their currency's value. Extreme economic exposure like this is exactly why businesses have to deeply understand inflation and exchange rate risk before they enter a new market. I mean, a sudden currency depreciation can literally wipe out your sales margins overnight. No joke.
Which brings us to this really fascinating question from our source material about how we actually measure overvalued or undervalued currencies today. Now, for years, The Economist magazine has used the Big Mac Index to compare the cost of that one specific burger worldwide. But this challenges us to think about what everyday product serves as the ultimate global baseline right now. Is it still a fast food hamburger? Or does an iPhone actually give us a better read on global purchasing power in our modern economy? It's a great question because how you view currency valuation directly impacts exactly how you're going to price your products overseas.
All right, let's pivot to Section 3, Structuring Your Sales Team.
Look, every great sales strategy has to start with a rock-solid mission and vision statement. It gives your leadership and your sales reps the actual context for why the business exists. And hey, I know it sounds like corporate fluff, but it really isn't. When your reps are grinding on the phone, crossing different time zones, trying to navigate shifting global markets, this mission is their anchor. It ensures that every single customer interaction, from the very first cold outreach to signing the final deal, stays totally aligned with your ultimate business objectives.
Okay. Let's talk tech stack. Because equipping your strategically structured sales team with an integrated CRM and a cloud-based phone system is a total game changer. It eliminates friction and optimizes your whole process. Tools like HubSpot and AirCall let your team combine all their data and communications into one single platform. Toss in some robust sales enablement docs and killer customer case studies, and you've basically guaranteed your team has everything they need to manage the buying cycle efficiently, no matter where they are in the world.
Next up, Section 4, Target Market and Positioning.
So, a crucial point here is understanding trade-offs. It is just as important to define your ideal buyer personas as it is to identify your omissions. We all naturally focus on those ideal customers based on our market research, right? But explicitly defining who you are not selling to, those unqualified prospects or businesses that are strictly out of bounds, that is what ensures your sales reps don't waste precious time and energy chasing down dead-end leads.
And this competitor matrix? Absolutely brilliant. Mapping out exactly where competitors outperform you gives your reps immediate counterpoints they can use live right in the middle of a sales negotiation. Notice how it acknowledges reality. Maybe competitor A does have better global reach, or competitor B has crazy good brand loyalty. But more importantly, it arms your team with strategic pivots on the spot, like boom, emphasize our higher ROI, or instantly demo our modern tech features. It turns competitive knowledge directly into closing power.
Which leads us perfectly into our final section, Section 5, Prospecting and Action Plans.
So, how do we actually get the leads? Well, combining inbound content strategies with some aggressive outbound cold calling ensures you are both nurturing warm prospects and continuously filling up that pipeline. You've got inbound marketing working its magic to organically attract people, while outbound tactics like B2B cold outreach let you proactively hunt down key accounts. Toss in a solid strategy for generating customer referrals, and suddenly you've built this comprehensive, completely self-sustaining engine for growth.
So how do you synthesize all of this, the market research, the macroeconomic data, the team structure, into a concrete action plan? You follow these highly tactical steps. First, establish incredibly strict criteria for outreach. Second, actually execute specific daily prospecting tactics. Third, you gotta religiously track your performance against targets like revenue, deals, and cycle length. And fourth, constantly adjust your budget and sales forecasts based on what the data tells you. This structured, no-nonsense approach is exactly how you optimize your sales process and acquire new customers faster.
To wrap things up, I want to leave you with a provocative thought that really highlights why true business leaders have to constantly evaluate these global economic realities. If a massive macroeconomic shift halved your target market's purchasing power tomorrow, how would your micro-level sales plan pivot to survive? If inflation spiked or a currency plummeted, would you completely change your target personas? Would you adjust pricing or alter how you prospect? Understanding the big picture isn't just some academic exercise for economists. It is quite literally the foundation of business survival and success. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and definitely keep these concepts top of mind as you build out your own winning playbook.
Now, since anime is internationally beloved and so forth, I decided to make that the theme of this whole international presentation. And so here is the basically all of what we discussed in one slide and all the key concepts. And I'm posting it up here, and I'll post it also on the with the video when we conclude, so that you can again use that as a reference point in which to continue writing your assignments. All right, I'm going to stop the share here. Satish, do you have any questions or comments before we ring off? Okay.
Well, thank you. I don't know if it was really, really helpful. And because I was in sales before, it really, I was able to connect to it. I worked in sales for about 10 years when I was back home in India. So I was able to connect to that. And the video was really, really well. But apart from that, I don't have any questions. I think we had a pretty good session.
Well, very good. And thank you for attending. And I want to encourage every one of you watching this video to attend our sessions in the coming weeks. In the meantime, I'm going to put all of this up on our announcement section, which you'll receive notice of. And it's a good reference point for you. And it's something that, again, is designed to help you in the completion of your assignments. So in the meantime, everybody stay safe out there. And remember, I'll see you in class. Good night, everybody.
Thank you, Professor. Have a good night.
You're welcome.
Thanks a lot.